Hello, very good morning and welcome to Breakfast with Dan Walker and Louise Minchin.
Headlines for you at just gone 8 o'clock this morning. 2 weeks until some pupils in England are due to go back to school. Parents and teachers demand more reassurances that classrooms will be safe.
New safety measures on trains with social distancing on board as more services start running from today.
And more staff, including security guards, on duty at our rail stations in case more people do travel than is expected.
Making it in the Premier League but struggling off the pitch, the former Manchester United player Luke Chadwick tells us how constant insults about the way he looked affected his mental health.
I wouldn't want to go out. I was always sort of looking at people. People knew I was, obviously, I played for Man United, and I always assumed that they'd be saying horrible things about me, when potentially they probably weren't all the time.
And a virtual Chelsea flower show as Britain's biggest gardening event of the year goes online. It's Monday, the 18th of May. Top story for you this morning. 2 weeks to go until some primary schools in England, their pupils will return to the classroom. The government are insisting that plans are in place to ensure the safety of both the pupils and their teachers.
Ministers want children in reception, Year 1 and Year 6 to go back to school as part of the next step to ease the lockdown. But unions and some parents say they're concerned about the spread of coronavirus, as John McManus reports.
When is the right time to send children back to school, and how will the safety of them and their families be guaranteed? In England, some younger pupils will be back at their desks on June the 1st, but no date has yet been set for schools in Wales, Scotland or Northern Ireland. Ministers say measures including staggered breaks and class sizes of 15 will reduce the chances of pupils transmitting coronavirus. But Labour says guarantees must be in place.
Everyone wants pupils to go back, but everyone wants there to be a safe environment as well. That is so important. And the government also needs to have its test, track and trace strategy all up and running as soon as it possibly can.
The government has acknowledged it can't eradicate all risk, but the evidence shows children with the virus rarely develop serious symptoms, though their transmission rate isn't yet known.
We've already indicated the direction of travel. We are aiming for the beginning of June. We're aiming for Year 1 and Year 6. So those parents of children in those age groups should be looking ahead to that potentially happening from the beginning of June.
Other European countries are facing the same dilemma. Germany and Denmark are slowly reopening classrooms using social distancing, but Italian pupils will stay at home until September. Meanwhile, the latest daily death toll was 170, the lowest figure since the day after the lockdown began on the 24th of March. However, numbers are typically lower at weekends. The total number of people who have died in the UK after testing positive for the virus is now 34,636. The only permanent solution, of course, is a vaccine. Some scientists believe one may not come for at least a year, or perhaps never. But the pharmaceutical company AstraZeneca has signed an agreement to make 30 million doses available in the UK by September, if it can find a vaccine that works. John McManus, BBC News.
So let's speak to our political correspondent Chris Mason, who joins us from Westminster. And I know you will have been watching that interview with Oliver Dowden. So many concerns from unions, parents and teachers about schools being safe in England. What do you make of what the government's saying?
Yeah, morning to you. We've seen the debates rage, really, on Breakfast in the last hour, haven't we? First from Labour and then from the government as far as schools in England are concerned. Where are we? Well, frankly, there's still a lot of uncertainty. So you put repeatedly to Oliver Dowden about the publication of evidence. What is the modelling as far as the effect of opening schools is concerned? The government says it's done it. There was no specific direct answer as to when that might be published, when we will get to see it. There was also no direct answer to your question about when the government will make a definitive decision, because we've been told throughout that the reopening plan for the 1st of June, as limited as it is conditional on the data, on the science, on how things look nearer the time. But obviously, we are trundling towards that date, and at some point prior to that date, a decision one way or the other definitively has to be taken. We learnt nothing new about when that moment will actually come. And meanwhile, as you say, real concern from the teaching trade unions, some more than others, but there are still real concerns that they would like to see addressed, and obviously some concerns from some parents as well. So the debate continues. We haven't yet got to definitive answers, and neither side, either those who are most vociferous amongst trade unionists or indeed the government, yet in public at least, willing to concede and compromise.
Chris Mason, thank you very much.
The Republic of Ireland is today beginning the first stage of its plan to ease their lockdown, and some restrictions are slowly being lifted in Northern Ireland. Our Ireland correspondent Chris Page is in Belfast for us this morning. Morning to you, Chris. So what exactly will change today?
Yes, well, Dan, it's the first steps on what's going to be a long journey back towards some kind of normality. In the Republic of Ireland, they're moving into the first stage of a 5-phase plan scheduled at the moment to be completed by the middle of August. So some sports will resume, like golf and tennis. Larger retailers like hardware stores will reopen. And also, and perhaps this is the most significant for most people, small groups will be allowed to meet up outdoors. Here in Northern Ireland, well, garden centres will be open again, household recycling facilities will be reopened, anglers will be allowed to return to the riverbanks, and marriage ceremonies can go ahead where one partner has a terminal illness. What's more, ministers in the devolved government, the Stormont Executive, are meeting today to decide which restrictions to lift next. Among the items on the agenda, drive-in cinemas, opening some larger retailers, and also, and again, this will be what most people are interested in, groups of up to 6 people may be able to get together outdoors, provided they do adhere to the social distancing rules.
OK, Chris, good to talk to you. Thank you very much, and thanks for letting us know what those changes will be.
Testing for coronavirus is to be offered to all care home residents and staff in Northern Ireland. The announcement follows criticism of a mounting number of deaths in the sector. It's hoped that the rollout of testing will be completed next month.
Software to help trace those who may have been in contact with someone who has coronavirus will be rolled out in 3 areas of Scotland from today. It's the first step towards an extended test, trace and isolate system, which the Scottish Government is hoping to have in place by the end of the month. The tracing software is different to the mobile phone app, which is being tested on the Isle of Wight at the moment.
Efforts to get commuters safely back to work by train are being brought in this morning. More security guards are now in place at several railway stations, and some seats on board will be blocked off to allow social distancing. Our
transport correspondent Tom Burridge joins us, as you can see, from Euston Station this morning, which, Tom, is pretty quiet compared to what it would be on a normal day at 8:10.
Very quiet, Dan. Very, very quiet indeed. I mean, there have been sort of flows of passengers off the platforms. The platforms are along that edge of Euston Station at certain points this morning, but it's generally speaking very, very quiet. Look down into the concourse. I'll step back out of the way so that Paul can give you a better view. And you really, I think, can probably see more staff than passengers down there at the moment. There are security guards on duty here. There are officers from the British Transport Police as well. They're in place in case passenger numbers are higher than expected and they need to manage the crowds in some way. We can show you some pictures, I think, quickly of what Euston looked like before the pandemic, how busy this station would normally be, and that gives you a sense of where we're at now. Let's come back to me now and just show you, I mean, let's get some clarity, I guess, from the station manager here, Joe Hendry. Let's bring him in. Joe's going to stay away from me, obviously. Good morning, Joe. Quiet this morning. How complicated, I mean, this station on a normal day isn't well designed, isn't it? I don't want to be rude about your station, but it's not a well-designed station. How complicated is it managing social distancing in a station like this?
So Euston normally has about 200,000 passengers per morning. That's a lot of people to move through a really small space. For us, social distancing is quite difficult. It provides an extra layer of challenge to an already complicated operation. Just like most stations across the UK, It's a bit strange having to tell people to stay away. Normally we're expecting, this is our high peak, normally about 8:15 each morning. Yeah, it's a bit strange.
OK, I apologise. We got a bit of a problem with your sound, Joe, so I apologise. It's not your fault. But I think it's worth clarifying, though, face coverings. You should wear one if you go on a train, on a bus, anywhere in the UK at the moment. That's the advice. If you're in a busy station, you should also wear one. If it's not too quiet, you don't have to, but you should have one at hand. And it is worth saying, last Monday, some services coming in from Birmingham into Euston were overcrowded or crowded at certain times of the day. So they are managing it. It's a really complicated dynamic, working out exactly how many people will get on a particular service at a particular time. And that's what rail bosses are having to manage in the coming weeks.
And Tom Burridge, anybody who knows Euston Station will know that is an extraordinary sight in many ways. That is so quiet on a Monday morning at 12 minutes past 8. Thank you.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.